There is a moment, and you have felt it, even if you have never named it, where the room goes quiet, the phone is out of reach, there is nothing playing in the background, and suddenly, without warning, an unbearable restlessness crawls up from somewhere deep inside you. Your fingers twitch, your eyes dart, your mind starts reaching, grasping, searching for something, anything to fill that hollow space. And in that moment, most people do what the modern world has trained them to do. They pick up the phone, they turn on the television, they open an app, they start scrolling through lives that are not their own, consuming content they will not remember, just to escape that one terrifying feeling. That feeling is boredom. And the world has convinced you, quietly, consistently, and very successfully, that boredom is a problem to be solved. But what if everything you were taught about boredom is wrong? What if that restlessness you are running from is not a signal that something is missing, but rather a doorway to something extraordinary waiting just on the other side of your discomfort? We were not born afraid of stillness. Watch a child before the world teaches them to be busy. They stare at clouds. They sit by a window and watch raindrops race down the glass. They lie in the grass and listen to nothing in particular. They are not bored in the way adults are bored, anxious, irritable, disconnected. They are simply present. They are in a state of open, unhurried awareness that the adult world calls unproductive and therefore dangerous. Somewhere between childhood and adulthood, something happens to us. Society hands us a schedule, a screen, a standard of busyness, and tells us that a full life is a fast life, that silence is awkward, that stillness is laziness, that if you are not consuming, producing, or performing, you are falling behind. And so we run. We fill every gap. We stuff every quiet corner of our day with noise, with stimulation, with the desperate illusion of productivity, and we call it living. But it is not living. It is hiding. It is the most sophisticated, socially accepted form of escape the modern world has ever invented. Here is what the science is now beginning to confirm, and what philosophers have known for centuries. The human mind does not grow in noise. It grows in silence. It does not heal in distraction. It heals in stillness. It does not create in constant stimulation. It creates in the fertile, uncomfortable, misunderstood space of boredom. When your brain has nothing external to process, it does not shut down. It activates. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network, a powerful system of brain regions that becomes most active not when you are focused on a task, but when you are doing absolutely nothing. This is the network responsible for self-reflection, empathy, imagination, memory consolidation, and the kind of deep creative thinking that has produced every great idea, every meaningful breakthrough, every profound piece of art in human history. It is the network that stitches your experiences into wisdom. It is the network that helps you understand who you are. And every time you reach for your phone the moment boredom appears, you are shutting that network down before it can do its work. Think about where your best ideas have come from. Not from staring at a screen. Not from a meeting or a presentation or a busy afternoon. They came in the shower. They came on a slow walk. They came in the middle of the night when you could not sleep and your mind was left alone long enough to wander. That wandering is not wasted time. That wandering is your brain at its most powerful, its most creative, its most human. Dr. Mindful Shift has spoken about this truth in a way that cuts through the noise of the modern self-help world, not with promises of hacks and shortcuts, but with a deep, grounded understanding of how the human mind actually works and what it genuinely needs to thrive. And what it needs, perhaps more than anything else in this age of infinite distraction, is permission to be bored. Because here is the painful truth that no productivity app will ever tell you: you are overstimulated. Every notification that pulls your attention, every video that autoplays before you have decided you want it, every algorithm that serves you content tailored to keep you hooked just a little longer, all of it is doing something to your brain that most people do not realize until the damage is already done. It is raising your baseline level of stimulation. It is recalibrating your brain's reward system to need more and more input just to feel anything at all. And in that process, it is quietly, systematically robbing you of your ability to feel satisfied. With a quiet evening, with a simple conversation, with your own thoughts, with your own life. The world is not making you more connected. It is making you more dependent, more restless, more empty. And until you are willing to sit with boredom, truly sit with it, without reaching for an escape, you will never understand just how deep that emptiness goes, or how powerful you actually are without the noise. This is not a comfortable truth. It was never meant to be. The most important realizations rarely are, but it is a necessary one, because you cannot heal what you refuse to feel. You cannot grow in a mind that is never given space to breathe, and you cannot discover who you truly are when you are constantly drowning in who the algorithm thinks you should be. The journey back to yourself does not begin with a new habit, a new routine, or a new self-improvement plan. It begins in the one place you have been avoiding. It begins in the quiet. It begins in the stillness. It begins, believe it or not, in boredom. Imagine your brain as a river, a natural, living, flowing river, one that has its own rhythm, its own seasons, its own quiet depths and rushing currents. Now imagine that every single day, without pause, without mercy, you are dumping into that river an endless stream of color, noise, data, stimulation, and demand. At first, the river handles it. It absorbs, it processes, it moves. But over time, the river becomes polluted. Its natural flow is disrupted. The quiet pools where fish once gathered, where the water once ran clear and still, are gone, replaced by a churning, turbid chaos that never settles, never clears, never rests. That river is your mind. And what is polluting it is not weakness, not failure, not a personal flaw. It is dopamine, or more precisely, the relentless, artificial, algorithmically engineered overstimulation of your brain's dopamine system that the modern digital world has built its entire economy upon. And understanding this one thing, truly understanding it, may be the most important step you ever take toward reclaiming your mental health, your clarity, and your peace. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. That is one of the most widespread and damaging myths in popular neuroscience. Dopamine is the seeking chemical. It is the chemical of anticipation, of craving, of the hunt. It is what drives you to reach for your phone before you have even consciously decided to. It is what makes you click the next video before the current one has finished. It is what keeps you scrolling, not because you are enjoying what you see, but because your brain has been conditioned to believe that the next thing, just the next thing, might finally be the thing that satisfies you. But it never is. Because dopamine was never designed for a world of infinite content. It was designed for a world of scarcity, where seeking was necessary for survival. In that ancient world, the dopamine reward system was brilliant, adaptive, and life-saving. In this world, a world where every craving can be instantly met, where stimulation is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at the touch of a glass screen, that same system becomes a trap. A beautiful, glittering, endlessly entertaining trap that is slowly draining the color from your real life without you even noticing it is happening. And here is where the suspense truly begins, because the most terrifying part of this story is not what happens when you are on your phone. It is what happens when you put it down. When you finally sit in silence, truly sit, without background noise, without a screen, without a task to complete, you will not feel peace. Not at first. What you will feel is discomfort, agitation, a creeping, irrational anxiety that something is wrong, that you are missing something, that you should be doing something, that you are wasting time. You will feel an almost physical pull back towards stimulation. Your mind will generate reasons, convincing, urgent, entirely fabricated reasons, why you need to check just one thing, respond to just one message, watch just one more video. And if you have never sat with that discomfort before, it will feel unbearable. It will feel like something is genuinely wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. What you are experiencing is withdrawal. Real neurological chemical withdrawal from a substance your brain has come to depend upon. And like all withdrawal, it is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that healing has begun. This is the moment Dr. Mindful Shift describes as the threshold, that precise, razor-thin moment between the discomfort of stillness and the transformation that lives just beyond it. Most people never cross that threshold. They feel the discomfort, they interpret it as danger, and they retreat back into stimulation before the real work can begin. But the people who stay, the people who breathe through the agitation, who sit with the restlessness, who allow the silence to be uncomfortable without trying to fix it, those people discover something on the other side that no app, no content, no algorithm can ever give them. They discover themselves. They discover the quiet, steady, deeply intelligent voice of their own mind that has been drowned out for so long they had forgotten it existed. They discover that the emptiness they were running from was never actually empty. It was full, full of insight, full of creativity, full of emotional truth, just waiting for the noise to stop so it could finally be heard. The dopamine detox is not a trend. It is not a social media challenge or a weekend experiment for the spiritually curious. The dopamine detox is not a trend. It is not a social media challenge or a weekend experiment for the spiritually curious. It is a serious, science-backed practice of deliberately and consistently reducing your exposure to artificial stimulation so that your brain's natural reward system can recalibrate, recover, and return to its baseline sensitivity. It does not require perfection. It does not require you to throw away your phone or live like a monk in the mountains. It requires only this: that you begin to create intentional space in your day where boredom is allowed to exist, where you do not fill the silence, where you do not reach for the escape, where you simply sit with your thoughts, with your discomfort, with your humanity, and let your brain do what it was magnificently designed to do when the noise finally stops. Because what it does in that silence will surprise you. What it builds in that stillness will change you. And what it reveals in that quiet, uncomfortable, sacred space of deliberate boredom will be nothing less than the clearest, most honest, most powerful version of who you actually are. The river wants to run clear again. The question is whether you are willing to stop polluting it long enough to let it. There is a kind of courage that the world never celebrates. It does not look like climbing a mountain or crossing an ocean or standing in front of a crowd and declaring your greatness. It is quieter than that. It is smaller than that. And yet it is infinitely harder for most people in the modern world to practice. It is the courage to sit still, the courage to close the app, silence the notification, put the screen face down on the table, and simply be, without distraction, without performance, without the constant low-grade hum of digital stimulation that has become so normalized we no longer even recognize it as the addiction it truly is. This courage is not celebrated because it is not visible. You cannot post it, you cannot measure it, you cannot turn it into content. And in a world that values only what can be seen, shared, and monetized, the invisible work of inner stillness will never trend, but it will transform you. Quietly, profoundly, and permanently, it will transform you in ways that nothing you have ever consumed, watched, scrolled through, or liked has ever come close to achieving. You have to understand something about the life you are living right now, every moment of it. Every distracted afternoon, every sleepless night spent in the blue glow of a screen, every conversation you were physically present for but mentally absent from, every creative idea that never quite made it to the surface because your mind was too cluttered to let it rise, all of it has been shaping you. Not into someone stronger, not into someone more connected, into someone more dependent, more fragmented, more desperately in need of the next hit of stimulation just to feel like you are participating in your own existence. And that is not a judgment. That is not a criticism of your character or your discipline or your worth as a human being. It is simply the honest, unflinching truth about what chronic overstimulation does to a mind over time. And it is a truth that most people will spend their entire lives never confronting, because confronting it requires sitting in the one place they are most afraid to be, alone, quiet, bored, fully, uncomfortably, unavoidably present with themselves. But here is what happens when you finally make that choice. Here is what waits for you on the other side of the discomfort, beyond the agitation, past the withdrawal, through the silence. And this is the part that no one talks about, because the people who discover it are often too changed by it to explain it in words that fit inside a caption or a comment section. When you sit with boredom long enough, something in your brain quietly shifts. The restlessness begins to soften. The craving for stimulation begins to fade. And in that fading, in that gradual, gentle loosening of the grip that overstimulation has had on your nervous system, something ancient and brilliant and deeply human begins to reawaken inside you. You begin to think in longer, deeper, more connected ways. You begin to feel things more fully. Not the shallow, fleeting emotional reactions that scroll culture produces, but real, sustained, meaningful emotions that actually move through you and leave you changed. You begin to notice beauty in things you had stopped seeing, the quality of light in the late afternoon, the sound of wind through leaves, the remarkable, ordinary miracle of being alive in a body that breathes without being asked, that heals without being instructed, that carries you through every single day of your life without ever once asking for your gratitude. Dr. Mindful Shift teaches that the deepest form of mental restoration is not found in a supplement, a sweep tracker, a meditation app, or a wellness retreat. It is found in the radical, revolutionary, countercultural act of doing nothing and meaning it, of choosing stillness not as a last resort when everything else has failed, but as a daily, deliberate, deeply respected practice that you protect with the same seriousness you give to your most important commitments. Because your mind is your most important commitment. It is the lens through which you experience everything. It is the instrument through which you create everything. It is the home in which you live every single moment of your life. And if that home is never allowed to be quiet, never allowed to reset, never allowed to breathe, then no amount of external achievement, no level of success, no accumulation of experiences or possessions or followers will ever make you feel the way you are desperately, achingly hoping they will. Peace does not come from adding more. It comes from finally, bravely choosing less. So here is what you are going to do. Not tomorrow. Not when things slow down. Not when you feel ready. Because the honest truth is that you will never feel ready for stillness. You will only ever feel the pull away from it. But today, in the smallest, most manageable way you can, you are going to create one moment of deliberate boredom. You are going to put down the phone. You are going to turn off the noise. You are going to sit with whatever arises. The discomfort, the restlessness, the strange grief of a mind suddenly left alone with itself. And you are going to stay. Not forever, not even for long, but long enough to remember that you existed before the algorithm told you who to be. Long enough to hear the voice inside you that has been waiting patiently and faithfully beneath all the noise. Long enough to begin. Because beginning is everything. Because the river that wants to run clear is already moving. Because your brain, remarkable and resilient as it is, has never stopped knowing how to heal. It has only been waiting for you to give it the one thing it needs most. The one thing that costs nothing, requires nothing, and yet changes everything. Silence. Stillness. The sacred, transformative, life-altering gift of being beautifully, powerfully, intentionally bored. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.